It's 17 past +2 in Newcastle, Australia. It is 3:17 a.m. in Manchester, England. And this is the only place in the world where a Gold Coast side lets a halfback go idiotically. And where the only thing awaiting for Des Hasler at the end of the rainbow is a severance payout. All we know is this is the Sideline Chat podcast, the one-stop shop for rugby league. Along with Mark Henry, I'm Connor Marcellus, and today it is part 2 of our NRL 2023 preview, and we will start about idiotic Queensland sides with the Gold Coast Titans.
What do we say about their season last year? That we haven't mentioned throughout the season last year. They were just woeful yet again. Disappointing, woeful. They've got big players and bodies like David Fafita and Tina Fa'asuamaleaui, but even that couldn't help. Even the David Fafita that we had in 2021, we didn't get in 2022, which is very unusual.
I would not lump Big Tino in with David Fafita. Two of the biggest names the Titans currently have in their side, but one of them actually performed last year. The other one didn't. But we all knew the Titans were up against the wall early the moment we heard Jamal Fogarty was let go to join the Raiders. I mean, for a Gold Coast franchise that has suffered and rebranded again ever since 1988, surely you'd be smart enough to think, hey, this guy guided us into the finals. Maybe we should hang on to him. No. Did not happen one bit. I'm just like, you guys are idiots. Yeah. You're going to finish outside the finals this year, and sure enough, it did happen.
And more near the bottom of the ladder and getting the spoon more than just missing out on the finals.
They actually spent up to 3 weeks and maybe a little bit more hovering between the bottom 2 places on the ladder all up. There's a good 3 weeks. They were actually running last at this point. You got to think, Justin Holbrook did not enjoy last year one bit.
Well, no, he wouldn't have. And that was really a surprise move for last year. We were near before letting Jamal Fogarty go. Because you know how well he was going at Gold Coast. He was guiding them there. He was getting them back up to, in finals and that. And then they say, oh, no, we're not going to re-sign you. Go. Bye.
In one word, implosion. Because dead set, the Titans imploded on themselves. Only 2 wins in the opening 2 months. We're talking 8 weeks, and you only got win a quarter of that. And then there was this big gap between wins. Literally 3 months, the Titans went without a single win.
You'd hate to be a Gold Coast fan, seriously. How could you go 3 months and still support that team? Besides the real loyal ones.
Well, I don't know how many Gold Coast fans are loyal because, like I said, Gold Coast Tweed, Gold Coast Seagulls, Gold Coast Chargers. Yeah. Is it for Orstein the Chargers? But that is the history of a Gold Coast rugby league team. They've never really done anything. They're always more or less in the bottom 4, let alone the bottom half of the table. And how many times have they died, gone into administration, only to be bailed out at the 11th hour before all the threats of relocation?
Yeah, multiple times, I believe.
And I got to tell you what, I feel sorry for Toby Sexton because he was thrown to the wolves when they let Fogarty go.
Yeah,
he would have been responsible for getting the Titans up and guiding them around the park, and he just fell flat on his face.
Well, it was kind of like a last-minute call-up. Well, not last-minute call-up, but a bit of an unexpected debut so early on. I think if you had one more season in, reserve grade or whatever, to find his game out a little bit more and have a couple NRL appearances here and here, he might have been all right. But he's just kind of really thrown in the deep end.
They say it usually takes about 50 games for a fullback to find his feet, unless you're a freak of nature like Tom Trbojevic. Then you can just get going straight away.
Yeah.
But even he started out on the wing. Because, club legend like Brett Stewart, and we will touch on Manly shortly. But somehow the Titans were able to rattle off no fewer than 3 wins in the final 5 weeks. But that's still not good enough for all this potential this Titans side has.
Yeah, exactly. The potential is there, like you just said. But they just can't execute it out in the field.
I look at round 12 against the Broncos. They should not have lost that game the way they did. They shot out to a 24-0 lead, for Christ's sake, or close to it. And what happens? The Broncos find a second gear, and they come over the top of them.
Exactly.
They should not have lost that game.
The really good sides, or majority of the other sides, would have been able to kick on with that result and like get a lot more points on the board. But Gold Coast, you can tell, aren't a good side. And to lose a 24-0 lead, it's just crazy. Like, what happened? Seriously, what happened in the second half was just mind-boggling.
It's just not good enough, especially for, I would say, out of all four current Queensland sides, Dolphins don't even have that much pressure. It's the Titans that should be worried.
Exactly.
They are the least successful Gold Coast side at the moment, and probably ranked equal last in terms of success. In contrast to the Broncos and the Cowboys, look at how well they've done. The Cowboys in little more than 27 years thereabouts. Broncos a little bit longer than that. Just not good enough.
No way. And if you really want really good Queensland derbies with Gold Coast in there, they really need to pick up their game, because we get cracker matches between Cowboys and Brisbane. But when it comes to Brisbane against Gold Coast or Cowboys against Gold Coast, they're not even in a contest.
You summed it up. It's a no contest. Now, in saying all that, I think there is one man that can hold his head high, who did not shirk his responsibilities or get dropped partway through, and that was Big Tino Fa'asuamaleaui. 4 tries, 1 try assist, 3,524 run meters, 61 tackle breaks, 8 line breaks, and 22 offloads. I think this was a very wise decision, even though we've just been bagging out Justin Holbrook's performances with this side. This is the one decision he got right.
Of making Tino captain.
Oh, yeah. This is the right call. And once again, captain leading the way, 3.5 kilometres run across a whole year. Regularly picked for Queensland. Really the only shining light the Titans really have up their sleeve.
Yeah, and that's what you need. You just need the team around him to kind of piggyback him from doing those sort of performances week in, week out. And if they can do that, well, then who knows what that could be. But it's just the inconsistency and really like a one-man show.
Now, roster rotation, the Titans have probably shed a little bit of dead weight here and there. A couple of bizarre losses as well. But this is the result of their recruitment drive for 2023. Corey Thompson hanging up the boots after what's seemingly a 9-year career all over the world, from Canterbury to Witness to Concord to the Gold Coast, and that's where
bit of a what do you call
journeyman?
Yeah, that one. That's the word I was looking for.
Is Isan Masters linking up with the Huddersfield Giants sort of deteriorated after leaving the Tigers? To be fair, really.
Yeah.
Greg Marju leaving to the Newcastle Knights. I think that's a bit of a surprise they let him go, but again, and sort of a questionable decision there. Jared Wallace, Jermaine Asako, both linking up with the Dolphins. Kevin Proctor finding a home at Wakefield Trinity after getting sacked for a vape at half times. Remember, vaping is bad, especially if it can cost you your job.
Yes, exactly.
Sam Lasone linking up with the Leeds Rhinos. A bit of a surprise on this one as well. And Will Smith, who left for Hull FC midway through 2022.
Yep. And on the Gainies front, they've signed a big player, Kieran Foran, who surprised Manly let go no, but he's kind of on out of there. Sam Verrills from the Roosters, Joe Stimson and Aaron Schott from the Bulldogs, Chris Randall from Newcastle in the swap there with Greg Marju, and Tremaine Spry.
I actually like that story of Tremaine Spry, because apparently
I thought he was already playing first grade.
The bloke almost lost his life, because apparently he was almost king hit, I think I read.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, violent attack on him, and now he's come back after a little bit of time. I'm out, back to where he was. I think.
But I thought he already.
This could be another good comeback story right here.
I thought he already played some bit of NRL.
2020.
Yeah.
He didn't play across 21 or 22.
Yeah, there you go. I thought I heard the names. Like I knew the name, but like I thought he played some games before. But yeah, not a lot. But I don't know why they classified it as a game though when he's already.
Oh, it is. It is. If he didn't. if he leaves and he didn't sign another contract with another club, that counts as a loss. And it's the same story or when the opposite is true.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Now the Titans, that's their roster rotation. How kind has the draw been to them?
Well, just quickly, Sam Verrill is getting picked up from the Roosters. That's a big... I reckon that's a solid signing from Gold Coast.
Foran and Verrills, I reckon that's exactly what the Titans need. Well, for Verrills, in this case, a fresh start where he can prove himself because he didn't have the best 3 years at the Roosters after the premiership.
Yeah, because there's injury.
And then, of course, they signed the cheese, Brandon Smith, up.
Yeah, there was no way he was going to get
But
game time.
Foran's leadership and a quality half, if he can stay fit, because that has been his bear bug over the last 7 or 8 years,
Yeah.
his shoulder, older mainly. But if he can stay fit for 95% of the season, the Titans will hopefully look to do better. But to do that, it's a first-up trip to Leichhardt Oval to take on the equally diabolical West Tigers.
Either way result.
And then round 2, once again in Sydney, up against the St. George Illawarra Dragons.
History shows that, believe it or not, and I still can't believe it myself, the Titans actually go all right against the Dragons. Like, seriously, I remember one year, like, over the last couple of years, that it was a very close battle of who was going to win that game. So those games usually produce good action.
Well, they did beat you at Magic Round in Golden Point, which many thought was farcical how the Dragons lost that.
Well, yes, but that's what I mean. That's a perfect example. Close games.
Yeah, and then you blew them apart, putting 40 on them in the reverse fixture down at the Gong. So
Yes.
But it's sort of like you take one win in a piece each year rather than someone going 2-0 against you.
Exactly, yeah.
And not to mention, the Dragons were the first side the Titans ever played. So there's that history there as well, although I wouldn't really say it's like a Roosters Rabbitohs or a Broncos Cowboys.
No way.
Round 3 up against the Melbourne Storm. Can I make a bet right now just to say Melbourne win this 13-20?
13-20.
Yeah, the margin.
Yep.
And I would honestly be confident enough to put money on Melbourne now if I was a gambling man.
What about 30 plus?
Yeah, I think 18 plus is usually the way it works out. Round 4, they'll be up against the Cowboys.
No contest, like I said earlier.
No contest. Round 5, they've got the bye, so the next time they will play, it'll be
against the Dragons again.
And I believe that's Easter Sunday.
On what date is that one?
Round 6, 9th of April, I believe.
I believe that is Easter
Sunday. Hey, let's see what the survey says for the 9th of April. Doesn't bring it up there.
No.
But we'll bring that up somewhere else. But no, I actually think that is the case. Round 6.
I'll have a look.
Because I know Canterbury will play South Sydney on Good Friday, so that's always a good marker. Yep, that checks out. Easter Sunday against St. George Illawarra.
Yeah, Easter Sunday is the 6th. Hang on, I'll get it right. Oh no, or is it?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is Easter Sunday you play. So,
alright, I believe you.
So,
the first thing that comes up is a movie.
2 weeks where you got 2 contenders, 1 game that could go either way, and the Dragons. Yep. Which, again, could go either way. So, not really ideal for Gold Coast, is it?
No. Not ideal, no. I mean, like, the Tigers game is one that can go either way. The Dragons game, well, in all honesty, that could go either way as well, based on the recent, like, the past games. But the other two of Melbourne and Cowboys are a no contest.
I figured. Now, what I reckon the Titans, they answered the question by gaining an experienced half to stick in there. So they're trying to really build the spine around Foran and Verrills.
Yes.
The questions remain fullback and halfback because Toby Sexton got screwed over big time early. Yes. They gave Tanner Boyd the green light across last season and the trials as they're just kicking off now. What do you do about fullback between Jaden Campbell and AJ Brimson?
Well, wasn't there talks about AJ Brimson going into the halves alongside Foran?
Well, Boyd's been given the nod at halfback, so if anything, Boyd's the one who will start in the halves with Kieran Foran running off at 5'8".
But then where you bring AJ Bridges, you could also bring him off the bench as a utility.
Well, I think they're looking...
Or you could also do that with Tanner Boyd
They're
as
looking
well.
to transition Aaron Clark into a lock forward. He is a bit of a nugget, and he's got a bit of a good fen.
Yes.
So I think if you're looking on the team dynamic, Tino's in the front row. Aaron Clark could probably play 80 minutes at lock. And then maybe, if you don't want to play him off at 80 minutes, Clark off, Brimo on, in the middle, and just terrorise. Orders to terrorise.
Yep. Well, like, if Tanner Boyd hadn't... If he's been underperforming, you can bring Tanner Boyd off the bench and you can play him at dummy half too.
I will say, though, the Titans will have no shortage of hooking stock.
No. You got Tanner Boyd that can play there.
Sam Verrills, the first choice, and now Chris Randall.
Yes.
The Knights made a very big mistake, right?
Oh,
there.
yes. Well, so did the Gold Coast Titans, losing Greg Marju.
But I think you got to be able to put it all together, and I really don't think the Titans can put it all together. I think they're potentially setting up Boyd for failure again, like they did with Sexton early last year. You give the halfback the confidence. If they don't get off to a good start, it'll just be a couple of weeks. They'll turn them over, and the Titans will be right back at square one. I see no real improvement, but I don't see any real...
gains either.
No, I don't see any real failure either. I don't think they'll perform as badly as they did. I reckon they will not go 3 months in a row without a win, but they're not going to be moving far further up the ladder than what they already have. Last year, they finished 13th on the ladder, having finished in the finals the year before. I think they'll finish in 13th again.
I reckon they're going to go down to 15th.
But they need to get the most out of David Fafita because he's off contract. He's a big portion of the salary cap.
He's been linked to the Raiders.
Not anymore. Not anymore. They pulled out.
Well, there you go. He was linked to the Raiders.
But there are several other clubs that are willing to splash for up to $900,000, I'd imagine.
I think a lot of Sydney... Well, I was going to say lots of Sydney clubs. Most of the competitions in Sydney.
Well, who can afford him? One, who's willing to splash the money? But two, who's in desperate need of back rowers?
Yeah, exactly.
There's seasoned, skilled back rowers. Of course, the Dragons would be stupid enough to try and throw that much money at him. Parramatta, well... Could Brad Arthur be able to get the best out of him? Who knows? Because they're not getting Liam Martin anytime soon. And then, of course, there's Melbourne. But that'll be post-Craig Bellamy.
True.
So we'll just leave it at that. Now, moving on. The Manly Sea Eagles. Wow, talk about implosion. This was an absolute disaster at the end.
Yeah, losing Trbojevic, Tom... earlier on in the season, that really did not help Manly's cause whatsoever for the rest of the season. You could see that Manly have built their squad around Tom Trbojevic, and when he's not there, they go absolutely shit.
A sloppy start, I would say, but losing Tom Trbojevic, not to the hamstring this time, but to his shoulder, I think that was a big blow when they lost to Parramatta and he went down. But somehow they managed to... I wouldn't say hold it together after losing him in that round 11 clash. They lost to Melbourne 28-8 the following week.
But it's Melbourne, come on.
But they were hovering, sort of, order to say. Ava Lease, they were hung on, a big win over the Warriors. Then they were able to, of course, they had to beat the Tigers. If they didn't, then it would have been a disaster.
Exactly.
But then they scored a couple of big wins over Melbourne and Newcastle to suddenly be back in it.
Yeah, the one against Melbourne was a bit of a surprise, although the one against Newcastle wasn't really. But yeah, winning against Melbourne was a surprise.
Yeah, that was a freakish game. That just went either way.
Very much so.
And you sort of had to be thinking, hang on, even without Tom Trbojevic, they had Ruben Garrick playing fullback. Manly was still a chance. Maybe not the bold prediction of mine of them finishing fourth and being the premiers. That was all conditional on Tom Trbojevic being fully fit for the whole year, which, of course, no.
No.
But after round 18, heading into late July, it all went south.
Yeah.
Very, very fast.
Post-Origin, or during the Origin period, really.
Not a single win, and then of course round 20. I do not talk about what happened in round 20 because that really leans into social political commentary, and I have done my best to steer clear of social political statements like that. But we all know what it is. That jersey.
Yeah.
The failure to communicate with the players, their stance on it, and the self-destruction that occurred following that result to the Roosters.
Yes.
From there, they never looked like making the finals.
Even before that, they never looked like making the finals, to be quite honest. As the season progressed on, like even the back half, it was like getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer each game they lost. And come to that round, it was like, it was getting worse and worse for them.
Couple of sort of telltale signs you could look at. Round 7 against the Sharks. They were behind like 34-0 at half time. They were behind the 8 ball. They had like 6 tries put on them in the space of 40 minutes there.
Yeah.
Then you get magic round 10 against the Broncos. Failed to score a try, and that was before Tom Trbojevic went down injured. When he did go down, that was a game on a knife's edge. They could have won that game. They were up 20-16 before Will Penasini scored in the final 3 minutes. Then clutch conversion from Mitchell Moses to win that.
Yep.
In the rain.
Yes.
Not easy to do.
No.
Narrow loss to the Cowboys at Brookie. A final last gasp effort from the Cowboys to win that game virtually on the siren.
That was a crack of a match, though.
But those 3 games were the telltale signs, especially after losing Turbo in round 11. Yeah, I got that right. Round 11. And then that whole fiasco with the jersey. And it just blew up in their face. And I feel sorry for Des Hasler that he had to wear the blame for something the board and Dynasty made.
Yes, without his knowledge.
He was sabotaged from the inside, and they reaped what they sow.
Yeah. Just sucks for Desi because it really shows that I don't think he would have got the sack if that didn't happen. If there was that,
he wouldn't have.
If it was that
dead set, he wouldn't have got the sack.
If there was that communication between the board and him, then it might have been a whole different story with that jersey. But because there wasn't, ultimately it cost Desi his job, really.
Yeah. I mean, we can joke about it now that the only thing under the rainbow for Des is a severance payout.
Yep.
And this is the second club he's taken the court over. And this time around, I think he bloody should take him to court.
Yeah. Because
it wasn't his fault that everything blew up in his face and that they couldn't win a single game from late July.
Yeah. Like I said, a team with no Tom Trbojevic in it, for Manly, it just shows how well they go without him.
Well, the record shows they rarely win a game when he's not there. But Daly Cherry Evans, a little bit questionable, I think, but still, you got to think, in the context of Manly, he was still amongst their best.
Oh, yeah.
5 tries, 18 try assists, 1,642 run meters, 54 tackle breaks, 6 line breaks, 23 offloads, 24 goal line dropouts, and 15 from 21 goals converted. So even without their key man, their multi-million-dollar man was still there to provide. But
yes,
I mean, he was trying to. Garrick and Jake Trbojevic were trying to carry that side all on their own. And Ola Kawatu was there; he was in and amongst it. But without Tommy, they just
couldn't do it.
They just lacked the X factor.
Yeah,
that he could give them. I mean, he can have, 2021 was, a crazy year for Manly because he was flying, literally flying. After the opening 5 rounds, they went 16-4 after that.
Yeah, it's solid, very solid.
But, yeah, it just failed to back up after that, especially, I wouldn't say rule readjustment, and it's because Tommy would have just adapted that instantly, but...
Yeah.
Always Tom Trbojevic is that linchpin that failed Manly and the side, without the confidence of having them in the side, that weighed on it.
Yeah.
Big time.
They need him fit and firing if they want to get back into the finals under Anthony Seibold.
Now, Manly have made minor adjustments. Of course, Marty Tapau, the latest departure, joining the Brisbane Broncos in 2023. Andrew Davey, the oldest debutant known in the Australian Rugby League, joins the Canterbury Bulldogs. Dylan Walker making the move across the Tasman to the Warriors. And Kieran Foran, of course, let go to join the Gold Coast Titans.
Anthony Sonny from the Kilmar Tuolagi from the West Tigers. Ben Condon from the Cowboys. Cooper Johns from the Storm on a train and trial contract. And Nathaniel Roach from Parramatta also on a train and trial contract at this stage.
I think what Manly are banking on is they intend to put Josh Schuster in the halves because that's exactly what he wanted, and that's why Foran was shown the door.
Yeah.
From what we've seen so far, Schuster he's looking fit.
He is. He's looking really good come this preseason.
And Benji Marshall said when he saw him play, he called Schuster's debut at Brookie in 2020 the best debut performance he had ever seen.
That's a
and
big call.
I believe those are exactly what he said to that effect.
Big call though, but and it was right too. Benji knows what he's on about. He's played plenty of years of footy.
I wouldn't doubt Benji's judgment, but there's a difference between the best debut performance he has ever seen and playing like a Jack Whiten or a Cody Walker, performing week in, week out.
Yeah.
That will be the difference. And he's a big body. And he was struggling with fitness in and out of last year, starting in the back row, off the bench. 5'8" have got to be bloody fit as buggery.
Yes.
I mean, you can't be Payne Haas in a Cody Walker body. You ought to be ready.
Yeah, ready. And be prepared for anything that's going to...
You need to be like Jack Whiten level fitness.
Yeah.
It's control the game, run hard, but an extra option and the Seagulls could have in the halves and big bodies at the back. Now, how kind is the draw to Manly for the first 5 games this year?
Well, I don't think it'll be easy, but it won't be a super hard one either. I reckon they've got a fairly even one.
Well, after a narrow upset loss to the Bulldogs in round 25, they will have the potential to avenge that loss at home, hosting Canterbury on a Saturday afternoon to open the season. Yeah, right, they're going to beat us like that.
Well, who knows? Depending how well the Dogs go in the trials.
And, of course, if Tom Drabojevic is there, which, based on current reports, he is on track to play in round 1. But how good will he be? Not very good, I suspect.
Well, not straight away, but he'll build up throughout the season.
Round 2, they will have the bye, so their next game will be round 3 against the Eels at home. So they'll start the year with back-to-back home games. Round 4, a trip to a core stadium to play the Bunnies. Hopefully Carl Lawton does... Oh, well, he won't be there, so Cam Murray's spine will be safe this time round. And after Gosford, round 5 up against the Newcastle Knights at Mudgee. That will be April Fool's Day, so...
Someone's going to get fooled.
Expect Kalen Ponga to actually play good for once. And round 6, they will travel to the Golden West to play the reigning premiers. That will be on Easter Saturday.
At Penrith.
Yep.
So yeah, it's not an overly hard draw, but it's not an overly easy draw either. It's looking at like the rosters of the Bulldogs and that. So there are winnable games, but also losable games, especially against Penrith and Souths.
I don't think Parramatta's going to lose to Manly at Brookie again. Well, I don't want to jinx it because Parramatta have had a habit of going to Brookvale and then getting absolutely roasted.
Yes.
But at the same time, Manly usually lose the first... It's been a trend that Manly have often lost the first 2 games they've played, only to then go on and win the 3rd game in an absolute blinder.
Yeah.
2017, they lose to Para and South. Then they flogged the Cowboys in round 3. It happened in... just trying to think of the last time it happened. It's happened a couple of times.
Yeah,
you look back over the last 6 or 7 years for Manly, they don't... Well, not necessarily, but... round 3, Last year was the same story. They lose to Penrith and the Roosters early on, and then they beat Canterbury 13-12. So not the first time they've done this tango.
Yeah. But it's a trend they need to break too.
I'm now going to break the golden rule. This is that has been dodging Manly ever since 1947. And this is going to be controversy alert number 1.
Here we go.
So this podcast will be rated C for controversy, defining as hosts really going against the grain and with the most ludicrous predictions of all time. And even if Tom Trbojevic is fit, I think this, and with Anthony Seibold coming in, because we've got to remember, Seibold will be in charge of the Sea Eagles for the first time. I'm having spent a year or two out after he got sacked from the Broncos in unceremonious circumstances. I genuinely dead set believe the wooden spoon comes for all. No one thought it would come for the Broncos, yet 2020 happened.
Yep.
It wouldn't have come for the West Tigers, yet last year happened for them.
Well, it was kind of expected last year for him.
And I feel sorry for Seibold because he's going to get thrown under a bus with a Manly side, a playing group fractured, a superstar fullback that hasn't really had a good run out of luck with injury, even though he's made this trip to the United States, the same that Latrell Mitchell did. Ryan Pappenhausen's done as well.
Yeah. We know what Latrell Mitchell did when he came back.
I don't think it's going to work out for Manly the same way it worked out for Mitchell at South. Last year, the Sea Eagles finished 11th on the ladder, having been in a position to finish inside the top 8. Here's controversy alert number 1. I will say the 2023 Wooden Spooners of the Telstra Premiership will be
The Bulldogs.
Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. They
Fair
will
enough.
be the Wooden Spooners. In my estimation, I think even if Tom Trbojevic pulls off a Dally M Player of the Year sort of season, it just won't be enough. I reckon Manly are going to be in for the worst year in the history of that proud club.
Well, I just say that I think a lot of the experts too have predicted Manly will get in the spoon as well. Well, some experts, I should say, not all of them.
Unnamed
But-
experts.
Sorry?
Unnamed.
Yeah, unnamed. But then a lot of people saying that Dragons will get the spoon too, so
And how many of them can you name?
I'm going to keep them unnamed as well. But I reckon Manly will finish one above and finish 16th, and it will be a battle of who they can avoid of getting the wooden spoon.
So you're predicting it's going to go to a spoon bowl?
Oh, well, yeah, kind of. We'll come down to the last game of who will get the spoon out of Manly and my final predictor in whoever's finishing in 17th on the ladder.
Now, let's just put the season previews aside for a moment because it is the Harvey Norman All-Stars time. Yes, the 2023 sides have been updated, so they're not exactly the originals that had walked out when they were announced. How long ago were they announced now?
Couple weeks. I believe the initially was the 25th of January. That seems about right.
So just before Australia Day. But yes,
it might have been after.
well, these sides have radically changed, but this is the Indigenous All-Star side that Ronald Griffiths will run out with. If come February 11th in Rotorua, New Zealand, Bailey Butler, Selwyn Cobbo, Tyrell Fui Mayo, Jermaine Hopgood, Nico Hines, Ryan James, Albert Kelly, Josh Kerr, Dane Laurie, the Mitchell brothers, Latrell and Shaq, Kieran Mosley, Brent Naden, Tyrone Peachy, Tyrell Sloan, Isaiah Tass, Jermaine O'Brown, Braden Trindle, potentially Captain Cody Walker, and Jack Whiten.
Yeah. As for the Ben Gardner side, he has put together Jesse Arthurs, Zach Docker Clay, Austin Diaz, James Fisher Harris, Corey Harawira-Naara, Morgan Harper, Royce Hunt, Zane Musgrove, Britton Nakora, Hayes Perham, Sheldon Pittimer, Adam Pompey, Jordan Rapiner, Jordan Ricky, Tuki Simpkins, Joseph Tarpany, Leo Thompson, Paul Turner, Credence
Toya.
and Dylan Walker.
So a couple of blows, and there's been a lot of criticism about the All-Stars fixture as of late, not just because Latrell Mitchell's currently facing charges of assault in a Queanbeyan court, but the timing and the lack of sort of the big names that have pulled out of this tournament.
Well, Adokar's pulled out. Joey Manu's pulled out.
Well,
Joey Waerea-Hargreaves
in the case of Manu and Waerea-Hargreaves, that is technically because of injury that they pulled out. Adokar's pulled out because he said, to this effect, he wanted to get his mind and body right for a big year with the Dogs.
Which is fair.
And this fixture, it does mean a lot to these Indigenous and Maori boys because it's their, it's the whole idea. It's their culture and their community, their tribe on display for the whole world to see. They go into these communities, they spend time with them. And it is, for somewhat of the last 13 years, it has been an institution for the best players of the cultures of Indigenous Australia and Maori New Zealand to come forward and put on an absolute curtain raiser to the season proper.
Yes. But losing those big names, I get Adokar's point of view. The Dogs are building something big this year, as I've said on tape last week. Manu got another, facial fracture from a training camp in New Zealand.
So did Latrell Mitchell sneak into that one, or is it... I would be actually amazed if Latrell Mitchell snuck into the Maori All-Stars camp and it was able to clip him high again.
Yeah, no.
That is a joke. Don't cancel me.
I know. And then, Waerea-Hargreaves is due to a hamstring issue, I believe I read somewhere. Or it could be a calf, but I know it's part of his leg somewhere.
But the scheduling, I can't remember which player, but a former player came out and criticised it because of the scheduling of it. Second weekend of February, post a World Cup year. Do you think the NRL should have scheduled this game not long after the World Cup in the first place?
Well, World Cup only happens, every 4 years?
Yeah, but that finished in November. The pre-season started in December, or thereabout. It's 1st of November it started.
Yeah.
And Adokar said himself, he was only back at training 3 weeks.
Yeah, right.
So he was probably thinking, as good as it would be to represent my brothers, my community, and my culture in this is pre-season fixture that mostly everyone seems to enjoy. He's sort of thinking, and probably the coaches have gotten into his ear as well, just saying, look, Foxy, I know you would love to play in this game, and I do too, but do you really want to risk yourself of doing a serious injury or going into that game underdone and putting in a half-assed performance and then coming back at still underdone?
Yeah. And I think Clubland, in a way, if the Fox's case, he's putting his club first over the representing his culture. Well, he's represented his culture before. And we know what he's capable of. But I think, like I said, what the Bulldogs are building to this year, I can understand why he's putting club first.
Not to mention, he's probably going to be first pick for State of Origin this year. Freddie better guarantee.
You bloody hope so.
I honestly hope Freddie bookmarks Adokar as the first player alongside James Tedesco he picks for the Blues camp this year.
Barring if Tedesco doesn't get injured.
Well, that's always key. So, should we be putting the All-Stars game after a World Cup year? Should we play it, or should we push it back to, say, a week before the season opens?
Not a week before the season opens, I don't think. Because if there's an injury concern, there's the risk of losing, a minor, 1 or 2 weeks. It's going to be a bit unfair on clubs. But you could also get a major one, but not a major one, but a moderate one that might be enough time to turn the All-Stars and round 1 for it to get healed enough in time, if you know what I'm trying to say. So maybe push it back another 3 weeks after World Cup year.
So you say push it back 3?
Or 2 to 3 weeks later instead of having it now.
I mean, you think about it. The smartest move would be, for every World Cup year, you would simply not play it. But that's technically not an option.
No.
But that would be the most logical thing. And to manage player burnout and to manage player safety at this point, you would not put the All-Stars game not long after the World Cup year, because it's a big calendar. If you're someone like Josh Adokar, who played all the way up to the World Cup final in late November, mandatory 6 weeks off he's got to have. So that's practically a month and a half he's not going to be there. And he said he only came back practically late January, opening in week of February, opening 2 weeks, thereabouts, up to this point. He would not want to be in that game. Or he should be. He wants to be in it, but he knows he can't afford to miss any time for the Bulldogs, especially if there's an origin berth up for grabs and finals as well.
Yes.
I'm probably going over tread and ground here. But, final prediction for this one.
Well, like you said, there's a lot of big name players out in this one. Just to see who will come together nicely. But I personally think the Indigenous All-Stars will get over the top. You got Latrell Mitchell in there, who knows what capable of. We know what Jack White's capable of. But Nico Hines, the season he had last year, I think he'll carry that over into this matchup. And I think he'll help guide Indigenous All-Stars to a, let's say, a 1 to 12. 1 to 12?
1 to 6.
1 to 6. Sorry, I should say 6 to 12. 7 to 12 victory.
Well, there's a lot of game breakers in the Indigenous All-Stars side. I think Hines, Whiten, Walker, Mitchell are all potential game breakers. But we got to remember, the Maoris upset at the Indigenous All-Stars the last time they played at Combank Stadium in a very close affair. There was only a try in it, all up.
There are some big bodies in the Maori side too, like Fisher Harris, Harawira, Naira.
Even without Warrior Hargraves, I'm looking at that potential front row combination. Joe Tarpany with James Fisher Harris. Dylan Walker at lock forward will be a very interesting pick as well. Who they got? So even though there's no cheese, they've got Docker Clay, I would imagine, be starting in a hooker. Yep. But Tarpany Fisher Harris is still a very good front row pairing, and you've Chuck Walker in at lock. I think the Maoris go back to back. I think they win this 1 to 6. I just think the dynamics of their forwards, it should be enough to keep the Indigenous really matched pound for pound in the middle of the field, and just give the platform for the Maoris to take it from there. So I'm going to back the Kiwis again. Probably sacrilege, but I think they'll go back to back.
Well, there you go. One from the Aussie land and one from across the ditch.
Now, from Rotorua back down to the Melbourne Storm. Yes, Melbourne. What an interesting year they had in 2022.
It was a bit of an interesting year, wasn't it? The future of Craig Bellamy was up in the air yet again. What else happened? They lost Nico Hines and a lot of other players throughout the season as they were all going to the new boys, the Dolphins, as we'll touch on very shortly. But yeah, they still managed to do all right by getting knocked out in the finals, which is unheard of for them.
The first time in 8 years that Melbourne failed to progress beyond the elimination qualifier finals. But the Melbourne Storm just didn't look as dominant as they usually have in years prior.
No.
I mean, we've looked at Melbourne as that side you can always pencil in to potentially push for a top 2 finish, especially since 2015.
Yes.
I mean, look at how well Bellyache's gotten Melbourne up since 2015. Minor premiers, lost the grand final. Minor premiers, won the grand final 2017. Second place, lost the grand final to the Roosters. Third straight grand final they made, only the second loss. 2019, minor premiership, bowed out in the preliminary final. Second place 2020, won the grand final. 2021, minor premiers, in a very tight contest, knocked out in the prelim final against the Panthers.
Yes.
And then you look at this result, and you look at the season, they were fine as far as round 9 was concerned. But since Magic, not exactly rosy, was it?
No, it certainly wasn't. I don't know what happened to Melbourne after Magic Weekend. It's just something wasn't quite right with them. And you could tell, too, something wasn't quite right.
In back-to-back weeks, they only recorded 1 try against the defending premiers and the Cowboys. that was an absolute surprise.
Yes, especially like against the Premier's Panthers, who it was two top quality teams, but really Melbourne were nowhere.
Rarely do you see the Melbourne Storm lose back-to-back games. They rarely do that. And this is not during the middle of Origin. This was like within the opening half of the season that this had happened to them. And then you go post-Origin, and with after that win over the Broncos, they ended up losing 4 in a row.
Which is very un-Melbourne-like. When was the last time you heard Melbourne lose 4 in a row?
It started with that freak loss to the Sea Eagles. Then they get pumped 28-6 by the Sharks. They lose to the Raiders 20-16 in a tight affair. A James Schiller double, or that really set up the try of the year. And then they lose to the Rabbits.
Another one should have been a very top quality game, but it wasn't really.
They recover slightly, but then they lose to the Roosters again in Melbourne. They lost more times in Melbourne than I think they have in the last couple of years. I mean, round 3, they lose to the Eels and Golden Point 28-24. Then they lose to the Raiders at home again, followed up by another loss at home. 3 losses at home. How many times do you hear Melbourne lose at home?
Not very often. Unless you ask the Sharks? Canberra. Unless you ask Canberra.
Now, I will give them benefit of the doubt. They haven't played that many games in Victoria as of the last couple of years because they've always been asked to move elsewhere because of incompetence and for their safety. But top 4 on the line, and you would think when they travelled to CommBank to face the Eels in round 25, everyone was probably thinking Melbourne will win this. They will finish 4th, and that'll be the end of that.
Yeah, no.
They have not beaten the Eels at CommBank ever since the stadium opened. They have travelled there 3 times to play the Eels. They've only got 1 win there, and that was against the Tigers in round 1.
Yeah, right. Bit of a bogey ground for them.
I imagine they'll win eventually.
Or the Eels have made it a fortress.
Well, the Eels just play better when they're at CommBank 97% of the time.
Yes.
But that finals loss to the Raiders again. How many times have we seen that happen?
Probably more often than you think. Like, I even thought that Melbourne were going to progress through over Canberra. But no. Canberra somehow managed to do it.
It's absolutely unbelievable that a season so well, but by their own standards, you'd say that was a loss.
Yeah,
that was a disappointing finish to their season because by round 15, they are on the coattails of Penrith, of really chasing hard for the minor premiership. And then 4 losses in a row, they drop to as low as 5th on the ladder, recover slightly with a 4-game winning run to compensate for a 4-game losing. Then they lose the final 3 games, finals included, to bow out in unbelievable
Week
circumstances.
1 of the finals.
Yes.
Week 1 of the finals. Usually they get knocked out in week 3. Not week...
Or the grand final where they lose. Or they win regardless.
Yeah, but not week 1. That's unheard of for Melbourne.
Just unbelievable. Cameron Munster, I've got to say, booze ban working a treat 100%. And 11 tries, 16 try assists, 3,193 run meters, 117 tackle breaks, 17 line breaks, 34 offloads, 9 goal line dropouts, and 7 from 11 goals converted.
Solid.
And he was even playing fullback, like named at 5'8", shifting the fullback in probably the back end of those games. I'd probably say the back third.
When they're trying to lose some starting to lose some troops.
I mean, losing Pappenhausen seemingly every second week or so.
That didn't help.
The right edge, I mean, Remus Smith missed a fair bit of game time, and he was starting to come good.
He was.
As well. But they just... I don't fear the Melbourne Storm anymore. You know what I mean? It's just like,
yeah, I get what you're
if
saying.
you said at the height of Billy Slater, Cooper Cronk, Cameron Smith, you'd be laughed out of every pub and club in the country.
Yeah.
But you say it now, and it's just like, I'm genuinely not convinced Melbourne are a threat anymore. I mean, that's saying a lot, because
That is saying a lot.
Pappenhausen's going to be back again after spending some time in the US. Munster's the best 5'8" in the Premiership. Harry Grant's the Australian hooker at this point.
Yep.
Right, or has played for Australia. You've got majority of the best players in the Kangaroos, Kiwis, Queensland spine all there.
Yeah.
And you're going to be prepared to listen to, I don't think the Melbourne Storm are going to make it.
Well, they've lost a heap of experience too over the off-season or throughout the season as well, which certainly won't help their cause.
A raid from the Dolphins and has left the Storm without Felice Kafusi and the Bromwich brothers, Jesse and Kenny. And Brandon Smith also joining the Roosters on a massive deal and a coup for them. And Cooper Johns, of course, as he touched on, joining the Manly Sea Eagles. And Tyson Smoothy currently with the Broncos on a training trial, I believe. Or has he joined their development list? I think he's on their development list.
Development list, yeah. They also lost David Nofaluma from the...
Well, that was mainly a loan.
Yes, it was a loan.
So he's returned home.
Yeah, but it's coming underneath the 2023 loss for some reason. But they gained Eli Katoa from the Warriors, Tarek Sims from the Dragons, Joe Chan from the Catalans Dragons, and Aaron Penne from the Warriors also.
So they lose probably upwards of 850 games of forward pack experience. That you can't replace that overnight. Even if you sign Tarek Sims to compensate, you look at that forward pack right there. Imagine the forward pack at the start of the year. You'd have Big Nelson, Harry Grant, Captain Christian Welsh, a back row, Trent Liero, Tarek Sims, Josh King, and then you'd have a bench that would include Tui Kamakamefa, Joe Chan, and then probably Alec McDonald, maybe. But that is a lot of forward pack experience lost. You can't replace that, and you can't expect some of these younger forwards to step up and do what they did for years, essentially. It's always the hardest part. And especially key figures in that pack. Brandon Smith, he was the X Factor. Jesse Bromwich, he was the big dog of the pack. And Kenny Bromwich came on as a very skillful back rower as well.
He certainly did. And I just don't know what's going to happen. Like, losing those big players could really hurt Melbourne this season.
I definitely think it has the potential to do that. And their start is not essentially easy. Round 1, they will open the season up, travelling to CommBank Stadium to play the Eels. Now, this is the interesting stat. Since 2003, Melbourne have not lost a Round 1 fixture.
That is true.
But at the same time, this will be their 4th trip against the Eels at CommBank Stadium. They have not beaten the Eels at CommBank since 2020. And their record at the stadium overall, 1 from 4 as it currently stands.
Yes.
So you have the paradox. Not lost a Round 1 game for the last 19 years, but only have 1 win from 4 trips to CommBank, this being their 5th and 4th up against the Eels.
It's going to be an interesting one, really. Like I said, bit of a bogey spot for them.
Round 2 will be at home against the Canterbury Bulldogs.
Like I said, when we did the Dogs last week, I said games like that I would have easily tipped against the Dogs and gone for Melbourne, but I don't know. The Dogs might get the upper hand. Who knows?
Round 3, they will make their first trip to the Gold Coast to play the Titans.
Well, that's an easy win for them.
Round 4, back at home on a Friday night against the West Tigers.
Another easy win for them.
And wrap it off on Friday, end of March, they will play the South Sydney Rabbitohs at Accor Stadium.
50-50 game, I think.
Well, it was certainly 50-50 the last time they played in less than ideal weather conditions.
Yes.
Can't believe South stunned Melbourne like that.
It was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it?
It was a genuine surprise.
But Miracles do happen, don't they?
Now, everyone's speculating that this will actually be Craig Bellamy's last year as an NRL head coach before moving into something like a general manager, director of rugby type arrangement.
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing, but yeah.
But if we have to assume that this is his last year, this will be the end of an era.
Yes, but then we all know who's going to come in after him, don't we?
It's going to be Cameron Smith.
Oh.
No. We all know it. More than likely, it will actually be Jason Riles who will succeed old Bellyache.
Maybe. I was more thinking Billy Slater, but...
I wouldn't be surprised. I would think Billy Slater gets brought on as an assistant coach to Riles. Yeah, and then Cameron Smith is there somewhere in the background who's actually the coach the whole time.
Oh, the second assistant coach is Cameron Smith.
Well, I mean, he's practically the third referee, been the third referee most of his career, so I wouldn't be too surprised about that.
He's been a referee's boss then.
What do you mean, should be?
Sorry, he is the referee.
Yes, there you go. He is the referee.
So that's probably why he picks Ashley Klein with the Dragons.
Yes, this is Conspiracy Corner right here. Yeah, so this is now rated double C as well as C. C for the controversy, the double C for Conspiracy Corner. That's just the way we roll. We just figure these things on the spot. If it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, then shut the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens if this is Bellamy's last season at all.
I would be very curious to think what he's thinking at the moment. Like, if you were to press the red button on the universal remote to think what a coach is thinking at the moment, it would probably be a lot of screaming, a lot of hole punching, maybe.
Maybe. Doors get ripped off hinges.
Yeah, no, that was Desi.
I know.
But having anger management with a suit jacket, yep, that one did happen.
Yes.
A lot of ranting, I would think a lot of ranting.
Just the passion.
And then, of course, cute photo of the grandkids. Yeah. Because there's that too, when he's not animated.
Yes.
That'd actually be funny. Craig Bellamy as an anime villain. He would honestly, artistically fit the part.
Probably.
And probably go Super Saiyan after that.
Maybe.
But all in all, this is going to be the second part of the controversy. The forward pack is my biggest area of concern for the Melbourne Storm.
I have to agree with you.
1 to 7, they will be hard to press. They are probably, I'd probably say, if you were to rank the backlines 1 to 7 at their best, I think you'd have to put them second behind the Panthers.
Yeah.
Penrith's got the best backline, easily, at this point. Melbourne comes in at a 2. And then I would think equal third, you would chuck in the Roosters, the Rabbits, the Eels, and the Cowboys. Sharks as well. Yeah. There is a lot of sides out of the... If you look at the current top 8, I would probably think most of their backlines would probably be equal third.
Yeah.
But the forward pack and the loss of the X Factor is a huge concern. Of course, they compensate by having Tarek Sims, but in the experience bracket, you've got a forward who has anger issues and likes dining out with the judiciary one too many times, as well as rugby bids after him.
Yes.
Christian Welch, the captain, who has missed a lot of game time through injuries over the last 6 years. And Tarek Sims, who, well, let's be fair, he's pushing 34 at this point, or will be.
Yeah, but he still could play some solid footy, though.
We'll see how good Bellyache gets out of him, because he has had the knack of getting the best out of his players, like Wayne in his heyday.
Yes.
Which has never really ended.
No.
But these young crop of forwards are coming in at probably the worst time. You lose a leader, a handy back row who has been a mainstay on the left edge, and you lose your big X factor as well. You can't replace those overnight. No one's irreplaceable, but you lose 800 games of experience. It's very hard to replace.
It's very, very hard. But they've got that good young crop coming through, and we know what the Melbourne system's like. The Melbourne system is one of the best in the league. Not the best, but one of the best.
Are they going to still be in the mix for the top 8? Yes.
Yes.
They are. But this is where it is going to get controversial. Last year, Melbourne finished 5th and bowed out in week 1 of the finals. And again, I'm going to say the Melbourne Storm are in the mix for the finals. But by round 27, I will say they will finish 9th on the ladder. I'm going to call it the Melbourne Storm will legitimately miss the finals for the first time since Craig Bellamy took over.
Wow. And that's how many years?
20 years he'll be in charge. One of those times was enforced. It was 2010. But I'm going to say, even if Melbourne have a winning record, they're going to miss the finals only just. Because I've already said the Dogs will be in 8th.
Yeah, but you haven't said he's 7th yet either.
The Raiders. I said they were going to finish.
That's right.
Finish 7th.
Far out.
Yep. Melbourne in 9th.
Wow.
Even with Pappenhausen, even with Munster, even with Hughes, Coates, Olam, Grant, it's going to come down to the final 2 weeks, and I think the Storm will be the unlucky ones to miss out, mainly because better forward packs will bully them off the park.
That is a massive, massive call. You heard it right here first. So, if he's wrong, you can blow him up. Nah, don't actually blow him up, but you can just edit that bit out. Well, not edit it out. Just
No, it'll just stay.
It will just stay, but then you can just play it over again of your prediction and how much of an idiot you look. Although, I could say the same thing when I said for Wigan finishing so far low on the ladder.
They're not going to. That is purely idiotic. You need therapy.
Yeah.
I'll call you a therapist.
Well, I think Melbourne will finish in 7th on the ladder. It's just going to be like I said, a log jam to try and get into the 8 very early on in the season, and Melbourne will be caught up in it. And I think they will, I wouldn't say sneak or scraping, but they'll just get in there in 7th overall.
Do they progress beyond week 1 of the finals?
Maybe, but depending on who they're up against, to be quite honest with you.
Well, it depends who you've got lined up in your ladder predictions, because that usually determines who you're going to play in week 1 of the finals. 6 plays 7.
Well, I've got Canberra in 6th.
So it'll be the Raiders hosting the Storm in week 1 of the finals.
Based on my ladder prediction.
On your ladder predictions.
Yeah.
So one that says to miss the finals altogether, the other one, lower end of the top 8. And finally, of the season previews, we move on to the only Kiwis in this lineup of 17, and it is the New Zealand Warriors.
Again, what happened to them last season? They just are so inconsistent whatsoever.
Yep, that pretty much sums them up. Consistently inconsistent.
Yep.
Sean Johnson's first year back in the Auckland colours.
And it didn't go well.
Well,
it wasn't brilliant, but it wasn't bad.
It's hard to say, because you listen to some other commentators and you think Johnson is past his use by date. He's not the same energetic ball all he was. He is much maligned, is Sean Johnson. And the lack of success of the Warriors is sort of a reflection of that.
Get your tongue untied.
It is. But to be quite fair, the Warriors consistently inconsistent, but they actually knocked off the Broncos and the Cowboys in back-to-back weeks.
That was a surprise.
Well, the Cowboys before they clicked into gear, and the Broncos when they were sort of on a downhill trajectory.
Yeah.
But we got to remember, they were still playing in Redcliffe, in Queensland at the time. This was before they were allowed to go home.
Yes.
But as it usually happens with the Warriors, it all went downhill.
And fast.
Yep. Between rounds 9 and 15, 6 straight losses.
Wow.
After starting the season, the first 2 months, 4-4 they were, but then downhill from there. They were able to pick up a win at home against the West Tigers. Their first
That was a
game.
homecoming, yes. Man, that was awesome scenes to see that stadium packed.
Yes, 26,009 rocked out to Auckland. Wins Mount Smart in round 16 for the first time in close to 1,000 days that the Warriors played in New Zealand.
Yes. It was only deserved that they got the win there. I mean, by then, Tigers were nowhere on the ladder anyway, but still.
And then that was it for a month when they lost a whole bunch of games all over again before getting a second win at home and then ending the year with 3 straight losses. Of course, Nathan Brown removed from his post partway through the season, not long after going down to Manly 44-12, an embarrassing result at Brookie.
Yep.
Stacey Jones, club great, taken an over, where he manages to get from round 14 through to 25, so that's a total of 10 games? Yeah, 10 games. 2 wins, 8 losses.
So it wasn't the flashiest of records either.
Yeah, it wasn't. Reece Walsh, ultimately, I think we can all agree he did go backwards in that regard.
Yeah.
Sort of the pressure got to him. Sean Johnson didn't really do anything for the Warriors. I mean, I picked him a couple of times, but really because I couldn't find anyone else who performed better.
Yes.
But yeah, a couple of big wins at home, 2 from 3, but they really should have beaten the Titans at home.
Well, a proper home, not the home away from home, but yeah. Yeah, should have.
Other than that, once again, a non-factor in the NRL. Just we talk about sleeping giants. The Eels are a sleeping giant, just hands down. But the New Zealand Rugby League sleeping giant. I mean, the Kiwis are amongst the top 5 competitive international test sides. Yet the Warriors,
and with one of the most passionate fans.
Yes. Yet they can't break into the top 8, let alone stay away from the wooden spoon.
Yeah. Don't know what the go is with that, though.
No idea. You look at that forward pack, and it's just like, they just can't get there. They play an attractive brand of footy from time to time, but they just don't play enough finals to warrant it.
Like I said, consistently inconsistent.
Yes, that is exactly what they are. Now, their best player, he didn't really factor in until probably not long after round 10, to be honest. But the captain, Tohu Harris, making a comeback after a serious injury, 1 try, 2 try assists, 1,967 run meters, 13 tackle breaks, 2 line breaks, 7 line break assists, 2 offloads, and 10 games where he played between 70 and 80 minutes, practically non-stop.
Very good.
But those 80-minute efforts, in the front row, mind you, that is awesome. A solid effort.
Very solid effort there. You don't see that happen very often nowadays.
He came across from Melbourne in 2018 as like one of those real big name signings of the Warriors for that season. Sort of struggled on an edge from time to time, but I think now that he's found his home in the middle, I think this is exactly the same as Josh Papali'i, Joe Tarpany. You move from an edge or at the lock forward role into the front row, and it just opens up a whole host of doors.
Yes, it certainly does. He just needs to make sure he's doing the same again this season to try and get them close to the finals, but he needs to have the team around him to do it.
Yeah, he certainly does. Now, the Warriors, now under head coach Andrew Webster for the first year in charge, has done a massive clean-out again of the Warriors' top 30 squad. Aaron Penne, of course, we just touched on, left at the Warriors to return to Melbourne. Unfortunately, Ash Taylor was medically retired at last year. Ben Murdoch-Massil has left for the Dragons. St. George Illawarra, not Catalan. Sad story about Chanel Harris-Tavita. Just lost his love for the game and is he's going to write a book now.
Well, there you go. I didn't know.
In retirement, Dejan Arce leaving to join the Parramatta Eels. Dynamis Louis, having joined from the Redcliffe Dolphins, and partway through the season, he's now left. Rumour has it he might be given a spot in the Dolphins' top 30 squad under coach Wayne Bennett. Not confirmed as of yet. Eli Katoa, Storm recovered. Jack Murchie left to join the Parramatta Eels, Cody Nikorima, and Matt Lodge left partway through the season to join the Rabbitohs and the Roosters, respectively. Otu Enakina Kepu was recently released by the club. Reece Walsh joining the Brisbane Broncos. And Taniela Otukolo, from all reports, has joined the Dolphins Host Plus Cup side in the Queensland Cup side. Competition, I should say. Host Plus.
Yep. And the gains from Marata Nirakoi from Parramatta, Luke Metcalf from the Sharks, Dylan Walker from the Seagulls, Mitch Barnett from the Knights, Chance Nickel Klukstad from the Raiders, Tamari Martin from the Broncos, Jackson Ford from the Dragons, and Braden Williampi from Perpignan.
As well as, of course, gaining Ronald Volkman and Freddie Lussick, both from the Roosters midway through 2022.
Yep.
I actually rate and Tamari Martin, as well as Chance Nickel Klukstad, I think those are the two best signings they could get.
Yes.
Martin, of course, had a good comeback story after being forced into medical retirement due to his bleed on the brain. Got that fixed up. He came back, as we said. Good year with the Broncos. Now he's got a fresh start. That's at 5'8". I really think Brisbane shouldn't have let him go, but hey, that's just the way the penny drops.
Yep. Well, I've got to say, even a Mitch Barnett sign, he's got the experience in there. He can play some decent minutes too. Dylan Walker, he's a good utility option you can have in the centres, halves, in the lock and that.
Recently, it's a lock forward, and that's what Andrew Webster has indicated, that he will, in fact, be used as the bench utility.
Yeah. And then Nero Corey from Parramatta, he's had a few good games there. So there's a really good signing front there from the Warriors.
But again, with the Warriors, it's always the question of all the talent, but no direction. They just haven't put it together.
Yeah.
Blake Green was probably the best signing they could get, where they played finals the first year he was there. They didn't back it up on their 25th anniversary. And then in 2020, when everything just went to shit, it for them, because really 2020, it was a shit year for the Warriors. Almost got in the finals under Todd Payton, but narrowly missed out. I think 10th they ended up finishing.
Yeah.
So, round one, they will actually be in Wellington for their first game of the year at Sky Stadium against the Newcastle Knights. Round two, they will make their first trip to Australia to the Mark II Allianz Stadium up against the Roosters before travelling to face the Cowboys in round three in Townsville. Round four, they will be back at home against the Dogs before their first telecast game on Channel 9 on a Sunday afternoon against the Sharks at PointsBet Stadium.
Pretty...
Yeah, it's something of a horror draw when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean...
Newcastle and Canterbury, much improved sides. The Roosters are always contender. And then you've got the Cowboys and the Sharks, who are amongst the top four.
The only winnable game I could say is Newcastle.
Maybe against Newcastle. Although they could stun the Dogs again, but really, it could either be range from as bad as an 0-5 to their best case scenario of it being a 2-3.
Yeah.
Because they're in New Zealand, there'll be more motivation that could really set up an ambush for anyone travelling to Auckland or Wellington early.
Maybe. You just have to wait and see what happens and what side we get to and how well they come out. And how consistent they are.
What Andrew Webster has done essentially is he's bought a side. He's bought a whole new back row. He's bought a spy. With the signings of Nickel Klukstad and Martin to go with Johnson and Egan. He's chipped away at what was assembled under the Steve Kearney, Nathan Brown era. But I don't think it'll still be enough. I just think there's always something about the Warriors, even if you think, all these players individually are good. Can they all put it together? Not really.
No.
I have serious doubts of whether the Warriors can put it together. And giving the assignment to a rookie coach so far early into the year, into his career, I should say, it just leaves a lot to be desired.
I think there's going to be more questions asked and answered in 2023 of how well he'll perform, how well the team go. Is he going to... I don't think he will get sacked, but you never know.
Rarely does a coach get a sack in the first year in charge, but stranger things have happened.
Oh, yeah.
Last year, the Warriors finished in 15th, only above the West Tigers by 3 wins, I think it was. They were clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not too far away from the bottom. I think they'll stay where they are as well. I think they'll continue to fit. They'll stay in 15th in 2023.
I just don't know where I'm going to put them. So got me 14th, 15th, 16th locked in. They haven't got me 17th locked in. But I'm deciding to go to Warriors or do I go to Tigers?
2 wins clear. They finished with a 6-18 record.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm going to say Warriors to get the wooden spoon.
So you say the Warriors. I did say the wooden spoon comes for all. The Warriors in their very short 28-year history have never got the wooden spoon.
It's just too, they've got the team and paper, all the signs and that, but just based on performances, they just can't do much with it, though.
No, they certainly can't. And so I don't think that'll happen. So one that says in the bottom 4, the other one says the wooden spoon.
For the first time in their history.
Yeah, now moving on to some other news, because we should start doing more of this and integrating it better. The London Broncos have popped up again, having just come off a 30-20 points loss to the Batley Bulldogs in round 1 of the Betfred Championship. The IMG Vice President has had something to say about that.
Go on.
Speaking in the Guardian, we have got the IMG Vice President. Just trying to find his name.
Oh, well done. So prepared.
Yes, so prepared. I've got the article brought up. Matt Dwyer, that's the Vice President of IMG, who, of course, is the global strategic partner of the Rugby Football League in the United Kingdom at the moment. He was just talking about the London Broncos' move to Plough Lane, the home of AFC Wimbledon, not very far from the All England Tennis Club. But this is what he says. We're not saying London's in our future plans for the sake of it because it's London. We're saying it because there's a future here, and what we've seen suggests it. You take the names off the cities and look at participation, interest, and a few other metrics. London was at the top for future growth. That there is a sleeping giant that could be awakened here.
That would be good.
And this is what he said. And this is, I think, the current head coach of the London Broncos, Mike Eccles, at the moment. Into the Guardian, he says, I've heard all the things about London's potential from IMG, but nobody has a divine right to have a seat at any table. They're saying the game would be better with a strong London in the top flight, and I agree with that. But we've got to get people excited about London Rugby League again. So that's exactly
Is that just like the Broncos Rugby League or the whole
London Rugby League in general? Across the whole south of England, with London the cherry on top. And this is sort of...
So basically Super League, getting everyone excited about Super League again.
Well, this is... Infrastructure is also part of the grading for it at the moment. And this is what London have called home in the past, since they were known as Fulham, Crystal Palace, Chiswick, Barnet, Twickenham, Charlton, Brentford, and of course the Ealing Trailfinders Sports Club.
A few home grounds around over the years?
Well, it's sort of, according to the reporter in The Guardian, it reads like a London cabbie's night shift. Well, it sort of does.
Well, it
Crystal
does,
Palace, Twickenham Stoop, the Trailfinders Sports Club. But this is what he's had to say about Plough Lane ever since moving in. And the Coach Eccles, it's an outstanding stadium for rugby league. I'm not sure there's many better in Super League, and certainly not in the Championship. We had great infrastructure at Ealing, but you could never top a crowd above 3,000 because of the size of the ground. Now we've got a facility to push for a big future, and we're surrounded by boroughs and areas where we can tap into junior rugby and boost our growth.
Wow.
So this plays into what we've said before, the club licensing, in the 8 club, the 8 Category A licenses and the 4 Category B licenses. So B1 and etc.
Yeah.
So on-field success will be a part of it. It's as well when the initial gradings for club licenses are done. Will it be enough? Well, time will tell, but the target area for London is free real estate. Even though you've got Premier League sides there, you've got rugby sides down there as well, like Tottenham, Chelsea, Crystal Palace are your big three names in football in the city of London itself.
Yes.
And then you've just got rugby from there.
Yep.
So you would be hard pressed. But what I'm hearing from the Broncos out of London is they're doing something good at the moment. They're actually investing into their academy. So they're not looking at bringing in players from the north or even from overseas. It's 50% homegrown London.
Good.
And this is what they're saying. I believe our junior programs are as good as any in the country, and it's on par with clubs like Wigan and the Leeds Rhinos.
Wow. Big call.
That's a big toot of his horn. Well, London had a bit of a haphazard start to the 2022 championship season, but they did pretty well to recover and avoid the relegation zone.
Yeah.
If they can get into a good start this time around,
which you already have in round one.
Competitive loss, 30-20 to the £1 million game runners-up, remember, in the Batley Bulldogs.
Yeah, but still.
But I think the IMG and the RFL would be remiss if London was not included in a 2025 beyond competition. They would be fools not to try and tap into London whatsoever.
And they've got the plans for it too, which is good to see. They've got plans. Well, it's got not more than likely got to happen, get executed, but at least they've got something that they're looking forward to doing, something to aim to achieve.
Now, staying on the championship for the moment, and having spent a whole year in the top flight, only to crash back down to earth again, Toulouse Olympique also played in the championship over the weekend, and starting off with a strong 24-4 win over the Barrow Raiders.
Back to how it was for them when they were in the championship before heading to Super League.
Yes, 1 year, practically close to it, since they were in the top flight. They've returned back to the second flight where they have dominated for so many years. Apparently they couldn't nail a goal to save their life, but they still ran in 6 tries to 1 in a very, I would say, a good confidence booster, despite only having 19 players in their side at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah, seriously. They only named a squad of 19. Not just for the game, for the season proper.
Too bad they got injuries.
It would be a disaster. But at the same time, they also have a pathways partnership with the Catalan Dragons once again. So if injuries strike, they can easily dial up Steve McNamara and Bernard Gouache and say, Messieurs, we have a bit of an injury crisis. Can you lend us a couple of players for X amount of period so we can just stay afloat? And of course, there'll always be opportunities for squad members 20 through to 30 later on. So they can always add players to the roster as the season goes on. But it was basically inside 5 minutes, they opened the scoring up through Ollie Ashelbot. So Toulouse doing what they do best, they just blitz everyone apart.
Yeah.
But they got a bit of an interesting competition. The Featherstone Rovers, after dismantling Keighley 50-0.
Oh, yeah, that's a good way to start the season with a thumping loss.
Yeah, they are currently second on the championship behind the Sean Long coached Rovers, and who are widely tipped to get in the Super League for 2024.
See what happens.
Yes, we will have to see what happens. It's right there, so good to see that London is the focus for reforming British Rugby League moving forward, and Toulouse doing what Toulouse do best.
That's it.
Finally, before we go, I know, once again, we've dragged this out for an hour and 20 minutes. I know...
16 minutes with the first team.
Yes, I do appreciate it. If you are listening to this part, comment, and still here below. Oh, hashtag still here. But just getting back to the Jack Whiten thing. Apparently, he wasn't going to be arrested as well when they were after that whole fiasco in Queanbeyan.
Yeah, we talked about this off air.
The way it planned out, apparently Latrell Mitchell had 5 coppers on top of him. He was going to get carted off to jail at 4 in the morning. But apparently, according to allegedly what's been reported in the Daily Telegraph, Whiten wasn't going to get arrested. But he said that if you're going to take him, you might as well take me. So it's just like, talk about mateship or plain stupidity.
Yeah.
Which way you see it going. But he's just like, oh, all right, if you're going to cart him off, I can't leave him in with you blokes. Not that I think you're going to do anything sus, but I'm going to stay with him. Take me into custody as well, even if I have done nothing wrong.
Yeah. That's good on... in a way, that's good on Jack White and doing that. And being there with his mate, but then also...
And get this from Ricky Stewart, who spoke in the Canberra Times. This article up on Zero Tackle. So, of course, you can trust potential clickbait, maybe. Although media would be slinging either side, whether you're the 9 newspapers, you're everyone's favourite Fox Sports personalities, James Hooper, Paul Kent, Phil Rothfield.
Yeah.
But this is what Ricky Stewart was quoted in the Time is, I believe in what he described to me as just 2 cousins mucking around. Jack didn't want to leave Latrell in the situation he was in when he was asked to go, and that's what I love about Jack. He puts his mates first.
So there's more mateship than stupidity.
And even Gary Belcher, who was part of the 1989 Grand Final side for the Raiders, he backed up his teammate and the Raiders coach, quote, I know times have changed, but I can't believe the hysteria over this. Jack would have fit in perfectly with the old Raiders premiership side. He is a brilliant young player who gives his all on the field, and he would have had a great time off the field.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he even says here, in our day, he would have been wrestling with Ricky Stewart or Mal Meninga, and the Colts would have come down and said, oh, come on, boys. We know who you are. Settle it down.
Yeah, exactly. Nowadays, it's a completely different story.
Well, you could say media hysteria, but it's also a role model point of view.
Yes, I know.
And but Gordon Tallis on Triple M Radio, he basically said, if their names weren't Latrell Mitchell and Jack Whiten, would this have blown up the way it did?
Yes, it still would have, regardless.
Regardless if it would have been, say, look at the Raiders side, if it would have been Peter Holler and Trey Mooney, it would have been Raiders players caught up in 4 a.m. and sprawl, or where alcohol was involved. It's just not just optics. It just sends a bad message. But look, I like what Ricky Stewart said, and
yeah, I have to agree.
I suppose from reading that, I'd have to give props to Jack Whiten as well.
Yeah, but
it's a bad look that they've got to face court on the 22nd of this month, and they're playing the All-Stars game this weekend.
Yeah, which...
in my opinion, they should not be there if they have got to go to court.
Yeah, it should be until after
Stood down.
Stood down until the result of the court case.
Yeah, exactly. But on that note, it is full-time from us. If you like this episode of the Sideline Chat podcast or any episode prior, make sure you leave this one a like, hit that subscribe button, and click the bell to allow for notifications so you never miss a week of rugby league action. Don't forget to give us a follow on our social media pages on Facebook and on Instagram. It is at Sideline Chat, and on Twitter it is at Sideline Chat RL, and our main hashtag is SideChatYT. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back next week. We'll answer everything from Newcastle to the Premiers. Can the Panthers go 3 in a row? Are the Knights finals bound in 2023? And is the witch still alive at the Parramatta Eels? Find out next week. We'll see you then. Along with Mark Henry, I'm Connor Marcellus, and you have been listening to the Sideline Chat podcast.
Enjoy the footy trials, people.